All right, so we'll kind of jump right in this morning with sort of our normal business items of, approving minutes. But chunk of our discussions today will be with Hillary Yantz from Tetra Tech, talking about the NARP strategy development for the main stem, some quick updates on TLWQS and bioassessment and some of the outreach materials and events coming up. But I'd like to start out with folks introducing themselves. I think what I'm going to just do is ask you to unmute. I'll read down through my list of folks, and if you can just unmute and introduce yourself and what organization you're with. So Jim Stepner, you're up on the top of my list.
Oh, thank you. Jim Stopner, I'm the Bureau Chief of Maintenance for the Illinois Department of Transportation District 1, which encompasses Lake McHenry, Cook, Kane, DuPage, and Will counties.
Big area, lots of roads.
Yeah, a little over 12,000 miles.
Wow. All right. Ed Dolzo.
Good morning, Ed Dolezal, Village of Shanahan. Am I vice president now too?
Yes, you are vice president now. Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right. Amy Hanrahan.
Amy Hanrahan. I am the water advisor with ExxonMobil refinery.
Things keep changing up here. I'll hopefully get everybody. Dan Tab.
Morning, Dan Tab, Public Works Director, Village of Riverside.
Right. Eric Bajork. We'll come back to Eric. I know Eric is with the Village of Romeoville. Felicia Hurley.
Felicia Hurley with Illinois Department of Transportation. I'm in the central office.
Kyle Vester.
Kyle Vester, engineer for Village of Mokina.
Matt Congaran.
Yeah, Matt Congoran, Superintendent of Utilities for the Village of Romeoville.
Thank you. Let's see, Mike Ott.
Mike Ott, I'm with Strain Associates, engineer.
Katarzyna Lay. She's with MWRD. Nikki Schaefer.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay. Just introduce yourself. Sorry.
Oh, hi, Nikki Schaefer. Nikki Schaefer, Baxter and Woodman.
Pete Grossi. Pete joins us from the city of Lockport.
Sorry, yeah, Pete Grossi, City of Lockport.
No troubles. Scott Freeze.
Yeah, Scott Freeze, plant manager, Jackson and Elwood.
Okay. Panakin Desai. Panakin is also joining us from MWRD. Tim Juskowitz.
Hi, it's Tim Juskowitz from Burns and McDonnell, engineer.
All right. Zach Brown.
Zach Brown, Utilities Director, Village of Frankfurt.
Steve Zahner. Now Steve's joining us from Robinson. If I did not call out your name, I think I have another phone number here. I'm not sure who's just calling in, or if I missed somebody, please just unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
That's just me on two devices. I
Okay.
have, but yeah.
No trouble. All right, great. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump in. So I guess the kind of first order of business was any questions around the meeting minutes for May. And if there are no questions, if I can get a hand raised or just unmute yourself and make a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved, Village of Frankfurt.
Second, Shanahan.
All right. On to the poll real quick. Click your answer, hit submit. Okay, if there's anybody else, we have 8 yeses and 4 abstains, no nos, so the motion passes. Thank you. All right, so we have been working with Tetra Tech over the last several months on developing a strategy of how we're going to come up with a target for the main stem, Des Plaines River, for the NARP, for as far as a total phosphorus target, and then how that relates to effluent limits. So as a reminder, we've had discussions about for the tributaries and utilizing the targets developed out of the IPS model. So some of that's reflected in the memos that are associated with this document here. But the focus of this document was really for the main stem. So through the IPS model, it only is really applicable to wadable streams. So pretty much all of our tributaries, and data from the lower Des Plaines tributary area was included in developing those targets. So we feel it's very applicable, but the main stem with a much larger drainage area, not wadable, really needs a slightly different approach. And so that is, we ended up bringing on Tetra Tech to kind of walk us through that process of kind of evaluating where we're at data-wise and information-wise, and making some recommendations on models. So Hillary had joined us at the last meeting, kind of walking us through where they were up to that point. We've pretty much gotten through all of the tasks. I provided copies of the memos to the wastewater treatment plants on the main stem for review. Hillary's going to walk us through all of that, and then we'll still have an opportunity to provide comments throughout the presentation here. We're very flexible. If you have questions, raise your hand, unmute yourself, and just ask questions. It'd be really nice to do this in person, but this is the kind of best way to get as many people around the table as possible. So please do feel free to ask questions as we go. And if you think of things afterwards, definitely email me, and we'll get those questions answered and incorporated. So Hillary, I'm going to turn things over to you, and just let me know as you want me to proceed to the next slide.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And I do have some animations, so I'm not sure if that's
Okay.
gonna make
But
yeah,
we'll do our best.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you all for letting me pop in today. So like Jennifer said, we're going to be talking about what this project has looked like over the past 6 months as it's now coming to a close, and you all are going to be going into that next 6-month phase of actually kind of putting pen to paper and writing out the NARP. So this project was the strategy or the blueprint to make that happen. And then now the next step for you all is going to be actually writing the NARP. Next slide. So yeah, we had a check-in back in March, and then in May, and then now here we are at the end. So these were the tasks of the project. First, we had that data inventory and review of everything Jennifer and you all were able to provide, and that we were able to find online, from USGS flow gauges, anything like that, that could kind of help us piece the puzzle together of what is the main stem and what are its drivers, things like that. Then we did task 2, which was kind of identifying what the key parts of the NARP were to be. Then task 3, evaluation of the necessity for water quality modeling, and looking at modeling both software potential and tools. Then we did a deeper dive into the data evaluation, and now here we are with the strategy. So you can go to the next slide. And you can click again. So as you all know, the requirements of the NARP, it needs to be completed by the end of this year. It needs to have stakeholder involvement. We want it to have implementation practices and ideas that are both schedulable and practical and cost effective to the extent possible. We want it to be, have this foundation of science and be data supported. And then part of the major goal is that establishment of a site-specific target for total phosphorus in stream, whether that be based on the INSAC recommendations or if site-specific can be developed. Next slide. So
Can we
the
just
overall outline, you can go ahead and click through these, until the tilde shows up, or the bracket. There we go. So yeah, the overall outline of the NARP that we kind of constructed based on, when and how we can lean on that relationship with the RSCW as they're working on their NIP. At the same time, we're going to, because the IPS tool involved both tributaries from that watershed and our watershed, we're going to try to find ways to have that language mirror each other where we can. But the overall NARP is going to have an executive summary that kind of cuts to the chase, a description of the water quality assessment. So what data is there, what impairments are present, what water quality standards are we comparing against, what is relevant to our watershed specifically that is related to the NARP. Then there's going to be a watershed characterization section detailing more about the actual properties of this watershed. And each of the slides that I'm going to step through today just cover each of these bullets. Objectives, source evaluation, management opportunities, and the implementation plan. So that's the meat of the NARP based on like the major kind of sections we are going to expect to see. And now I'll just step through each of those based on the analysis that we've completed to date. Next slide. So the water quality assessment section, that's going to involve a brief history of regional hydrology and hydraulics, talk about those designated uses and standards, what waters are impaired by and involving the relevant parameters to the NARP, which are nutrients, algae, dissolved oxygen, talking about any TMDL history of the watershed, and then there are, potential sources that are associated with, those existing pollutants and what we know. So that will kind of set the stage. That's the opportunity to tell, EPA that we understand why we're here and what we're doing, and we're taking it seriously. Next slide. Watershed characterization, that's where we're gonna, there's gonna be lots of graphics and summaries of these various key points. Topography, what kind of slopes are we working with, the land cover, how it changes, the soils, what types of runoff are we looking at, what are the hydrologic soil groups, population and population changes. Certain areas that are working on NARPs might have more specific trajectories of increased populations they expect, or changes in where those dynamics may occur. That may not be relevant here, but talking about population dynamics in general, and because that sets the stage for the types and amounts of effluent that we're seeing. Talking about climate and weather patterns and seasonality. And then kind of what I think is going to be the most interesting is really detailing the complex hydrology and hydraulics that kind of come together at this point in this watershed, and who are the key players when it comes to stream flow and the water balance, the total phosphorus balance. We'll get into that later, but this kind of sets the stage for what to expect. Next slide. So the objectives for the NARP, that's the next section, and this is going to be heavily leaning on the language that DRSCW is going to be developing. So why are we focusing specifically on total phosphorus rather than a specific target on increasing dissolved oxygen or just targeting algae specifically. Regionally, other people or other watersheds have different problems with algae than we do. So, you know, talking about why the focus is on phosphorus and what we think we can do for our wadable streams based on reductions of phosphorus and the impacts that will have, or we hope to have, on aquatic communities. And then looking at those in-stream targets. And so you can hit enter again twice there. So wadable stream, we have a target in mind, and that is based on that IPS tool development that was conducted by MBI. That's the in-stream target of the 0.28 milligrams per liter of total phosphorus. And now we have the bigger question of the non-wadable streams. You know, it was not in the scope of this project to come up with that target, but to come up with a plan for how that target can be met. So we talked with MBI. We've had several conversations and we've done lots of research on how that can be approached. And that's part of the plan, a large part of the implementation plan. And as you can see across the bottom there, the way the different tools and models can work together is that the data has to be collected to support the IPS tool. And we believe that the IPS tool can be used in a different application here for non-wadable streams. Then once all the data is analyzed statistically by that tool, by MBI, then a target can be developed in stream. Then water quality modeling can occur using a model like Qual2KW. And then once you have a calibrated model that adequately captures the existing conditions in stream, then you can start playing with those future scenarios of what various effluent limits may have an impact on the stream or not, what's happening with our neighbors, how are those changes going to impact our watershed. So those can all be run as various scenarios. Next slide. So looking at the next section here is the total phosphorus source evaluation. So first we're going to be presenting information about the water balance of the system. So this pie chart you're seeing here is from the downstream end of the main stem. Who are the various contributors to main stem flow at that point? And we can see that 62% of our flow in stream is coming from the sanitary and ship canal. And then we've got other larger contributors, our headwater condition from the upper Des Plaines, the DuPage River and Salt Creek have, you know, other significant impacts to the flow itself. So that kind of helps paint the picture of, you know, what do we see, or at least kind of putting in perspective how we even anticipate any changes to impact. Yeah, and then so looking at the total phosphorus source loading, we see a similar balance that, you know, the larger majority of 67% of the phosphorus that is loaded to the stream, to the main stem when looking at that downstream point is coming from the ship canal. And other major contributors are the DuPage River, Salt Creek. The main stem effluent, or the main stem POTWs are contributing approximately 3% of the total load to the in stream of the main stem. And this is, you know, just to clarify, is based on, I think it's calendar year 2020 that we were looking at. So this is not like a long-term average necessarily. This is sort of a snapshot in time based on the analysis that we conducted for this project. So we'll be setting the stage there and then moving into the next section. Yeah, you can move on, of management opportunities. So the management opportunities are relatively limited. It's not like adjacent watersheds where we have plans to, you know, take out a dam or anything like that. But there is ongoing work that we've already participated in looking at leaf litter studies, what can be done to reduce those non-point sources. CSOs are being handled as part of kind of a different element here. And then the key management opportunity that we intend to focus on as a work group are those the effluent limits for total phosphorus for the wastewater plants. So for wadeable streams, we intend for that effluent limit, it's going to look like something between 0.35 and 0.5 based on that in-stream target of 0.28. So that graphic below, I don't know if that's the most up-to-date, but this was the graphic kind of that comes out of the IPS tool. Looking at the sensitive species to total phosphorus, this is how the 0.28 was developed. And so running the modeling that we've done for DRSCW for each of the East, West, and Lower DuPage and Salt Creek, we kept that wadeable stream target of 0.28 in mind, and we ran various scenarios. And in the end, it looks like they're going to be going in our neighbor watersheds that a 0.35 is able to, that coming from our wastewater plants can achieve a 0.28 in stream in most conditions. However, we know that different tributaries may have a bit more assimilative capacity if, you know, natural phosphorus conditions in stream, or at least, you know, background conditions now can show more assimilative capacity, then we could see that limit increasing from a 0.35 to potentially 0.5, depending on individual tributaries. That's going to be part of this like adaptive management approach to see what things look like in individual tributaries to see if there's additional flexibility. For the main stem, that target still needs to be developed because all of those wonderful points that we see, all those data pieces of looking at the various species, we don't have that data yet for the non-wadeable main stem. So that is what I said, like the big target of the implementation plan. Next slide. So the implementation plan has a couple different key elements. So you can go ahead and click through until this slide is full. So the first one is work group participation. We're all here, we're actively participating in this process. We intend to continue to collaborate with regional work groups like we can for future planning, coordination, potential additional sampling in other non-wadeable rivers nearby. We're going to talk about our monitoring studies that we've already been conducting. So definitely presenting throughout this document the work that has been done to date and what we continue to do or will start doing. Planning for that potential tracking of monitoring of streams as management opportunities are carried out, and you know, seeing how that changes. And is it having the positive impacts we expect? Do we need to kind of reconsider anything? And adaptively managing the monitoring program based on the needs of the work group to meet our objectives. Another prong of this implementation plan is documentation and outreach, supporting the production of these water quality reports, you know, engaging with the public and having communication to further the goals of the NARP where we can, and then drafting that language for the kind of revised or updated NPDES permit that allows for this NARP compliance. Bioassessment data evaluation, so prioritizing the collection of data that would be needed to develop a target for the non-wadeable main stem. And that, as we'll get into the next slide, we'll talk about the schedule for implementation, that's going to involve likely some collaboration and hopefully kind of shared funding, but these conversations have yet to kind of really kick off. But with other watersheds like the Kankakee, the Rock, to see where other non-wadeable main stems, where we might be able to work together to increase the volume of data that we have, just like was done for wadeable streams. Can we kind of collectively, regionally look at non-wadeable streams as well to boost that amount of data across a nutrient gradient to be able to develop that target? And then lastly, the other part of the implementation plan is modeling. And part of that is, I mean, a lot of the other watersheds in this region are modeling, and it is a defensible way to show how different potential scenarios can impact the main stem. And I think one of the most interesting scenarios that we're going to be looking at when that time comes, or when that time comes for you all, is going to be, okay, this is our existing condition. Now what happens when MWRD starts their implementation down the line of what their future target or what their future limits are going to be? Okay, once the DuPage and SALT hit their future timeline of when they're going to decrease their total phosphorus to 0.35 or 0.5 respectively, how does that impact our main stem? So we can really see the value of how we fit into the larger puzzle and how all of those changes are going to impact us. Next slide. So the first part of the implementation schedule here is highlighting what's been done to date. So that we formed the work group, we've conducted various bioassessment monitoring, water quality sampling throughout the watershed. And then, you know, and part of that will involve the documentation of when each plant kind of took on the limit of 1. I know it varies by plant, so I think that documenting when those occur will be great to show in the implementation schedule. And then this year is when MBI is starting that data collection of the lower main stem, expanded DO SONS deployment, and then you can hit enter. And then so looking forward, the next 5 years of this NARP implementation plan is going to involve the MBI group collecting data for the upper main stem and potentially other non-wadable streams regionally, continued DO SONS deployments. The next year, IPS tool, or 2 years after that. So that's going to be from 2024 to 2025, that additional data collection, hoping to really build that data set to have enough to statistically identify an appropriate total phosphorus target to be protective of aquatic life. So then we expect in 2026, we hope that that data can be evaluated. And as opposed to the previous IPS tool that was done for wadable streams, we're talking about a more abridged IPS tool evaluation that is focused on just total phosphorus, not kind of every suite of parameters under the sun. Great to have in the future.
Hillary, you can you hear me? Oh, yeah, now I can hear you. So I think, well, the last thing we heard was yes. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Can anyone hear me?
Yep, I can.
Oh, wait.
Can you hear me, Hillary?
Yes. Okay, now I can. Sorry. I was
So
doing the audio on my phone and then my phone just kind of dropped it for some reason.
No trouble.
Okay, sorry everybody. So yeah, so this kind of abridged IPS tool application is hopefully a way to get to a total phosphorus target with a lower financial cost and a lower kind of time cost in collecting the data that would be necessary. But a more complex multi-parameter IPS tool could still happen in the future, but that being sort of the more focused goal during the NARP implementation period is trying to find that TP target.
Right, and that wouldn't be, I mean, we would likely still be looking at some basically nutrient related parameters. So it wouldn't just be TP. I mean, there'd be other data going into it, but our goal is to come up with that TP target, but we'll be looking at nutrients somewhat holistically versus, so it'd be a smaller bucket of parameters where right now the IPS tool was done for like, I think close to 200 different parameters. So we have a much smaller list, which is kind of that abridged version.
Yeah, and kind of simultaneously, the in-stream water quality model could be developed ongoing while data is still being collected. But the goal is that by the end of the 5-year implementation period that we're looking forward to after this year, is that we'll be able to start modeling those various future conditions that include the changes of our neighboring watersheds, those that have a large impact, and then modeling the impact of what happens when our tributary plants go down to the 0.35 to 0.5 range, and then kind of the cascade of impacts to see what impacts, if any, can happen when various different changes are considered for the main stem plants. So those scenarios we're looking at are on like a timeline horizon of, we're modeling, towards like 2035. Yeah, next slide. So like I said, there aren't, we intend to have a section in the NARP about physical projects, but there are not specific physical projects that are currently planned. Part of that language that we're going to include there is based on, documenting the challenges that, a navigable river, non-wadable stream like the Lower Des Plaines, what the unique conditions are there, and why the existing locks and dams, cannot be destroyed to improve fish passage, for example, like what's going on in some of the other watersheds, but being clear that the work group is open to potential future projects and pilot projects as they, kind of arise. And one thing that Jennifer was talking about was the possible partnership for kind of incorporating channel substrate improvements with native freshwater mussels and mussel beds, potentially north of the where the shipping canal comes in, as a potential for, if you can improve the substrate with mussel beds, then you can bring in kind of different macroinvertebrates that are going to have different patterns that might respond differently to changes in nutrient conditions over time. So kind of just leaving that door open for being open to potential projects if and when they become available. Next slide. So yeah, the overall kind of the conclusions of this project, as we look back at it are, we have a strategy now, we have an outline for how the NARP is going to be created. The last memo that we've produced for task 5 of this project is, basically that blueprint with more detailed information than what I've included today, and how specific data can be used for these future applications. So yeah, the next steps on Tetra Tech's end are to finalize those draft memos, bring forward any, comments or questions that people bring up today in our final drafts, and then kind of passing the torch so you all can have that clear plan forward for writing and then future implementation of the NARP.
Thank you, Hillary. So if anybody has any questions right now for Hillary, like I said, I did send out the draft memos, and like some of them, just the ones with my comments in them, to the main stem plant operators that kind of we had met with back in March. And so any comments on those when you guys get a chance to review them would be incorporated into kind of the final memos coming from Tetra Tech on this. But if anybody has any specific questions today, and once we get those memos completed, we'll definitely get them out more broadly to the membership. But wanted the initial opportunity to comment and make any changes or comments on for those plants that are specifically going to be impacted by this. So any questions anybody has for Hillary? All right. Again, I will circle back with all of our plant operators and staff on any comments that anybody thinks about or discussions that you have after this internally, so we can get some comments back to Hillary here in the next week or so, so the Tetra Tech can kind of close out their end of the project. So yeah, I'll circle back with everybody and see what other comment, if anybody has any further comments, and then get back to Hillary. Well, thank you very much for your time, Hillary. And
Yeah,
I
and
will,
thank you for yours as well.
yep, I will chat with you next week.
Okay, great. I'll see you later.
Thank you. All right, a couple of updates on some of the other things that we got going on. So we talked about the bioassessment program at our last meeting. So this is round 2 of bioassessment. So we're starting back at the lower end of the main stem. So we're kind of going from the confluence with Kankakee up to about the 355 bridge. We have 25 stations on the displays itself, and then 1 on the Kankakee and 1 on both Ship and Sanitary and I&M canals. Just so we kind of have that downstream end of those watershed areas to be able to compare data to. So water chemistry is been underway since the middle of June. We'll have 8 different sets of samples collected, and MBI is doing that collection for us, since many of our stations are not necessarily associated with bridges, so they're using their boat to collect those samples. We're in the midst of the expanded DO right now. So we have probes out at several sites this week and then over the next 2 weeks to wrap up that part of the data collection. The macroinvertebrate crew, I believe, is on their way here. Or just got here, so they'll be setting out. We use the Hester Dendy plates, so it's an artificial substrate that we put out into non-wadable streams, leave it out there for it's for like 4 to 6 weeks. I don't quite remember the length of time, but it's left out for a certain amount of time, and then they're collected and kind of see what invertebrates have utilized that artificial substrate, and that's kind of the standard sampling from macroinvertebrates on non-wadable streams. And then the fish crews will be here in August to get the first round of the fish data collected. So we'll have 2 rounds of fish data. So far everything is moving forward. And it's just a matter of weather. One of our second visit for sampling, they got 1 day of sampling in and got rained out for the remaining days with the big storm we had a couple weeks ago. So kind of as much as we need rain on the landscape, try to keep things somewhat even on the river would be really nice, but we'll deal with that as the weather happens. Some quick stuff on the chloride TLWQS. So again, we have a page on the website, so it's under our work section for the Lower Des Plaines Watershed Group. And within that page, we have the templates that were put together, and some background support documents, and then we have the reports by organization. So this is an older snapshot of that website for everybody who did turn in an annual report. I believe we have all of them posted now. I know there's a few communities or entities that have not turned in their annual report yet, or that we needed some revisions to. So as soon as I'll be following up with folks on that, and as soon as we have those final documents, we'll also get those posted to the website. So again, the annual report, we have a template on the website to follow. I think we just have a handful of folks who have not gotten that completed yet. But posting it to the website, making it public is a requirement of the permit. And so this is a way to make it public, have all of them posted on our website. Just some other general reminders of, planning for the fall, of getting all equipment calibrated by November 30th and having all staff trained in some way by November 30th as well. And that training is fairly broad as far as what training means, and whether that's sending them to a workshop, the workshops that we co-host this fall, or if it's internal training of, kind of hitting on your own snow and ice plans, having everybody understand those, understand what documentation is required and why, understanding how, the practices are used and application rates. So, I mean, those are things that can be done in-house and just tracked as training. But everybody who's involved in the snow and ice program needs to have some training. And it, can be definitely aligned with those tasks that that person does. So not everybody needs to be trained on how to calibrate a truck, but maybe the folks who are doing the calibration, that there's, some refresher training or, working with either your supplier on providing some refresher training, things like that. So there's definitely kind of some open flexibility there. One of the other things which we've had a few questions on from folks is, I think within your, like when you go online as part of your permit requirements through IEPA, so it's not something I can get into, but you as individual permittees, and there's the kind of the timeline that they list out all the tasks that are due. And there's a task listed for September 30th of having BMPs implemented. So that is not, and we've had some questions on this. We've talked to IEPA and they were supposed to either give some further explanation or just take it out of the list. The reason why that is there is that as part of the TLWQS, you were supposed to have all of your BMPs that are listed in the permit implemented within 12 months. So the permits were issued last September. So that was the 12 months to get those implemented. There's really not anything on September 30th that you need to turn in, because basically having your PMP in, your pollutant minimization plan, which talks about what you are already doing and what you'll be planning on doing to implement those BMPs, should already be turned in. And then your annual report that then reports how you're meeting those things you listed out in your PMP and how you're meeting each of those BMPs. Because some of them it was, you need a plan about how to do this, where other ones were, you need to do this. And so that kind of combination of things. So as long as you have your PMP and your annual report done, you are set for that September 30th date. And if anybody has any other questions on that, please feel free to reach out to me about that. I included these in the meeting notice. These are, kind of save the date for our workshops. We did have a change in the parking lots and sidewalks. We originally had a September date. Ended up having some conflicts with that, so that got moved to a little bit later in October. So the roads workshops will be similar to what they've been in the past, working with Connie Fortin, who's now with Bolton and Mank. So her and her staff will be presenting the public roads workshops. Parking lots and sidewalks will be the new Salt Smart certified parking lots and sidewalks training. So based on the new Illinois manual for parking lots and sidewalks that was just completed this past summer. So it'll be a completely new workshop that will be presented for parking lots and sidewalks this year. All of these are virtual. We should have registration opening in the next few weeks here at saltsmart.org, and when that's open, I'll send out notices about it. Again, like in the past, it'll be a single fee. I think it's $50. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure it's still $50. I think that's what we did last year, what it was last year. And so you pay that one registration for each date you want to send staff to it, and then you'll get a link that you can share with your staff. So you don't need to pay for each individual staff, you just need to pay for individual dates if you want to send folks to more than one date or have staff at more than one date. And so that is coordinated by our other watershed groups in the region. We also work a lot with Lake County and the groups up there as well to just coordinate, share some of the staff coordination time to get these organized. Something I mentioned the last meeting, we do have these exhibits, the Salt Smart New exhibit available. So this was something that was actually developed with a number of libraries last winter or last fall into winter. and the Northwest Water Planning Association, as well as through Conservation Foundation, Salt Smart Collaborative. And so it visited a number of libraries last year, and then was given to the Conservation Foundation to kind of coordinate getting it out there and used in other locations. So Joliet Library was one of those libraries that participated in the creation of the exhibit, and they will have it first this winter, because they kind of, with the way timing went last year, and with some things going on at the library, it made sense to just hold off on them exhibiting it this winter. So they'll have the first go around, which would be November 6th through December 8th. It will be at the Joliet Library, but then after that, it'll be available, and whether it's, up at a library or in a municipal center, in some public space, there are 8 pop-ups. If you go to the Laura DuPage, Laura Desplaines website, Leah put this on the front page now. So from the front page, you can click to learn more and go to kind of the page that has the information about the exhibit itself, and then about reserving it. And we will, as we add reservations, we'll add them to the list here, so people can see where it's going to be and what dates are already taken. But if this is something that that you're interested in kind of coordinating with your library or your municipal center to have, for a 2 to 4 week kind of range over the winter, you can just get online and submit a request for reservation. It's both in English and Spanish, so it's English on one side and then Spanish on the other side. They kind of roll back down into a case on the bottom. They come in little carrying cases, so they're pretty easy to get moved around. But definitely something we'd like to get out there. So I do have these flyers, or you can just send people to the website if you have contacts with your library, want to coordinate between your municipal side and with the library to get the exhibit out. Then maybe we're happy to help out with some additional social media pieces or anything we can do to help support promoting the exhibit out there. Some other just general resources, we shared these last time around. So the virtual salt symposium that's organized out of Minnesota is actually next week. Hannah and I will be attending in, we will have it playing at the office. The first day is kind of focused a little bit more on the ag side. Second day is definitely more the roads, parking lots kind of side of things. So you can check out their agenda if that's something of interest to anybody. They have some good speakers lined up. And then we do have the date set for the Northeast Illinois Salt Conference. So this is, again, with that same group of organizations that's coordinating hosting our virtual workshops. We're working together to put together an in-person half-day conference. So kind of morning with lunch, with like a networking lunch, really kind of geared, definitely more on the road side of things, geared towards road supervisor and up, or anybody who, maybe is working towards, or, you're working towards promoting up through the leadership sort of supervisory positions. And content wise, we'll really be trying to focus on providing examples from local examples of some of the different cutting edge practices that are out there. So how others in the region are implementing some of these best management practices, learning from their trials and tribulations on some of these things, getting some input on different products. So that's what we're working on right now, and just sort of finalizing an agenda for that. But we do have the date set for September 12th. It'll be held at Shriners, the Shriners Banquet Facility that's in Addison, as kind of being central to our northeastern Illinois area. So there'll definitely be some more information coming on that really soon. Just quick overview of outreach materials that are available. So we have our whole list of outreach materials that are available on the outreach page that really can be used throughout many seasons. But these are some of the new things that were created this year, building upon you know, some of the stuff that we've had. So we started out with our treatment plant overview, and we'll be continuing to build on that as sort of a series like we've done for the green infrastructure series. So having information just about how treatment plants operate, some of the differences in that in operations, and like I think for spring we were thinking about you know, some future topics of, you know, be a good one to talk about, like disinfection, because that's as people are getting back out in the water and understanding what treatment plants do to keep people safe out, you know, from a recreation standpoint. But just highlighting the good work that our operators do, and the important role they play in water quality for the region. I think this may be our last, or maybe we have one more topic for the green infrastructure series. So we hit on the green infrastructure series specifically to meet the MS4 requirements in the MS4 permit. They talk specifically about having outreach materials on green infrastructure as part of your education and outreach component, the public outreach component of your MS4 criteria. So we've put together that series, and then continuing on our watershed ecology, kind of picking up new topics each time. So this year, yeah, or this season with green infrastructure, kind of focusing on green roofs, talking about macroinvertebrates. And then we had a new topic. So, you know, we're always asking for input on things that, you know, topics related to anything water quality or stormwater related. We're happy to put together materials for. So we had a request from one of our communities in the DuPage River watershed. You know, that there have been complaints about people dumping yard waste into the streams, and that, like, we've talked about other kinds of dumping, but we didn't have specific things about dumping yard waste into streams or along streams. So we put together some specific materials on that. So this is, you know, this is exactly what we want to happen. If you have topics or issues happening in your community that can be tied to water quality, stormwater related topics, we're happy to help put materials together. Leah happened to have kind of a little bit of a break in her schedule and was able to work on this pretty quickly. We were able to put these materials together and get them out to be shared with particularly with the community that requested it, but then put it out there, obviously, as a topic that everybody faces. So again, example of the type of thing that we really want to hear back from you. If there are things going on in your community that you could use some help with communicating on, that's what we're here for. Again, Leah's been keeping up with, you know, posting stuff to Facebook for the Lower Des Plaines Watershed group page. So, you know, whether you take and share from it here, like it, or you know, utilize these materials in your own way. It's always exciting to see communities take the materials we're putting together and sharing them out there with their residents. We have our YouTube channel. Generally right now, it's just really been our membership meetings. I haven't taken a recent screen clip of this, but we have them on the YouTube channel. They're also linked on the website under meetings and minutes. So we have the minutes posted up there, and the recorded meetings are also posted up there. Our next work group meeting will be September 28th. Oh, sorry, I did not fix that one. The cause work group meets quarterly. I forgot to update that on this slide here. They meet quarterly, and so their next meeting would be September. But instead of holding their meeting, it'll just be participation in that Northeast Illinois SALT conference. So that'll be sort of in place of that cause work group. These are kind of the upcoming things that we have on the calendar. Again, if you have questions, if you have outreach needs, if there are any questions or comments around the presentation that Hillary provided this morning, we'll get that posted to the website by early next week at the latest. If there are others that you think would be useful in your organization to watch at least Hillary's portion of that presentation, please reach out. If anybody has any other questions, comments, other things to bring up, please feel free to just unmute yourself and comment.
Yeah, Jennifer, the Salt Smart exhibits, do you have to take all 8 of them at once, or can you get like 4 of them?
Yeah, so on the website, they are posted so you can see what each one of them says. And they can somewhat stand alone. And that was definitely a discussion point that we had when the libraries were putting them together in the first place. Is, some libraries have lots of space, and other libraries or, other places where they'd be put, wouldn't have as much space. So you definitely, I think, could pick and choose on them. But they're posted, like each one, there's a graphic of each one, so you can kind of see what makes the most sense for the space you have. Any other questions?
Actually, Jennifer, do you have a time frame on those? Like how long they keep them for, or?
Yeah, we have, it's listed on there is a maximum of 4 weeks, so that we can kind of get them around. So, I mean, anywhere like 2 to 4 weeks. And we had, on the request form, we had kind of 2 sections where you could put 2 different groups of dates in. So, your first preference, your second preference. And like I said, it's kind of first come, first serve at this point. And as we get those requests in, like we'll post the dates that it's already reserved. Try to keep that as up to date as possible on the website.
Thank you.
And we do have the Salt Smart cups that we can make available to go with those exhibits. Oh, I guess the one thing I didn't mention is that we're through the Conservation Foundation, we are also doing a winter chloride watch. So it's a winter chloride watchers program with Illinois River Watch. So it's a volunteer monitoring program that we're going to be helping Riverwatch to coordinate for Northeastern Illinois. So we're looking for, partners to host some of those workshops. And actually that's one of the things we'll be reaching out to Joliet Library about, maybe holding a workshop during the time they have the exhibit up. So for looking for different ways, like I'm happy to coordinate with any of our, local libraries here that are within our watershed area of potentially coming and doing a presentation while the exhibit is up. You're just looking for ways that, we kind of make the biggest bang for our buck with having those displays available. Definitely open to any ideas. All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you, everybody. Let's see. This comment from Tim. Yes, I agree. It is sad that we have to actually tell people not to dump stuff into our streams. But this is what we deal with. So yeah, then any other comments chat wise, or just unmute yourself. Great. Well, I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their summer, and see you next go around at our very latest at our September 28th meeting. Hopefully I'll see some of you at the Northeast Illinois SALT Conference on September 12th. We'll get information about that soon. And again, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.